Mexico. I'm reading to you from the New York Times. Under NAFTA, as a result, 20 million Mexicans live in food poverty. 25% of the population does not have access to basic food, and 1/5 of Mexican children suffer from malnutrition. As the U.S. heavily subsidized corn and other staples poured into Mexico, producer prices dropped and small farmers found themselves unable to make a living. Some 2 million people have been forced from their farms, right? Mexico's not producing its own food. It's a captive market. It's importing American food, and it's devastated the country. Mexico is poor, and American agribusiness stays rich. That's capitalism. That's why we had the American Revolution. The British Empire was trying to tell us here in the United States that we couldn't develop our own industries. We had to buy from the British. And as a result, we had a revolution so that we could develop our own economy. And the same thing the British Empire was doing to us, capitalism and the huge multinational corporations are doing around the world, keeping countries like Haiti, countries like Nigeria, countries like India captive markets. And countries are constantly fighting to try and break out of this. And the socialist revolutions of the 20th century, they didn't happen in Western Europe as Marx had predicted. They happened in the developing world because capitalism was keeping these countries as impoverished captive markets without their own industries, without their own economic growth, and keeping them as basically vassals, as dependent states, client states that are impoverished and suffering. And socialism was those countries breaking out, planning their economy, and industrializing.
Because I talked with Kyle Kalinske about this. I don't know. I would love to read where these bizarro anti-NAFTA studies are coming from. I've seen like very pointed anti-NAFTA like propaganda that will hyper focus on like specific industries that say like, well, corn markets were disproportionately impacted in Mexico and so many jobs were lost here. But like Mexico was one of the large winners in NAFTA, and this is something that I've seen like universally heralded. Like exports under farm exports in Mexico. Well, you can't say sure to that. You just literally told me that NAFTA took a shit all over Mexico's economy. Wait.
So the New York Times agrees with me. The headline of the article is "Under NAFTA, Mexico suffered and the United States felt its pain." November 24th, 2013. I guess they're lying to hurt American capitalism or something.
I'm sorry. Are you literally citing me an op-ed to tell me that opinion piece is somehow reflective of the economic census on NAFTA?
Yes, I'm citing the statistics in that op-ed. Yes. I'm citing something that even the New York Times admits, that Mexico has been
the New York
very
Times,
badly hurt by free trade.
The New York Times is not an economic journal. Why are you telling me that even the New York Times? Also, wait, is this, I'm sorry. Wait a second. Is this article, what's the author of this article?
The author is Laura Carlson.
Wait, what is her background? Is this literally like an opinion piece, or was this written like
a statement against interest? The New York Times is a defender of Western capitalism. The fact that even they would admit what it has done to Mexico, I think, is very strong. Or while we're at it, I have the CIA World Factbook statistics of life expectancy in front of me. Cuba's life expectancy is 78.9 years. The Dominican Republic, another country in the Caribbean, it's part of the Western capitalist system, 71 years. Jamaica, 74. Honduras, 71. Guyana, 68. Mexico, 76. Guatemala, 71. Haiti, 64. Come on. Right? Capitalism's the answer. Why are all these countries that are part of the free trade system, are part of the global capitalist system, impoverished? And Cuba, a country with a centrally planned economy, has achieved a much higher life expectancy.
Okay, I don't know about life expectancy. We're jumping onto a totally different argument. Okay, so like, somebody linked me this article, so just reading it, right? Like this person literally says like damages were done to like Mexico's agricultural sector. It doesn't mention the massive gains made in the industrial sector. Hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs were created in Mexico. I think it's like 20% of car imports in the United States come from Mexico. These are jobs that paid citizens more money than the farming jobs, that led to a greater industrialization of Mexico in these parts. She literally in the next like paragraph of this article just says, well, as a result of some of these agricultural practices, 20 million Mexicans live in food poverty. That's not a causal link. Like how many Mexicans, like this is.
They owned their own farms beforehand, and now they're in food poverty. They're not even producing their own food.
Wait, so you're telling me that prior to NAFTA, every citizen of Mexico was well-fed, totally well-nourished, had all sorts of like. No, come on, this is ridiculous.
Ms. Carlson's article is that it made conditions worse, and I think if you look at the narco drug-infested chaos that's involved in Mexico. If that were happening in Venezuela, we'd be told, see, socialism did it. But it happens in Mexico, and we're told, oh, I've even had a lot of libertarians try to tell me that Mexico must be socialist because it's poor, right? Because everyone knows capitalism leads to prosperity. That's simply not the facts.
I can't. I can't actually I can't argue against a New York Times op-ed on this.
Yeah, let's stay away from
I
let's
mean,
stay
like,
away
we,
from
I
doing
mean,
that.
like, if
Statement
you want, like,
against
we can dig through
interest,
because
the New
I've
York
read
Times
so
is a
many like
vehicle that defends the free market system.
the New York
routinely.
Times does not defend economic. I don't care what the New York Times says about the economic impact. Now, if like Krugman or somebody's like, or Krugman is writing an article or something talking about like a specific, like I'm sure I'm interested in reading that. Or if Borjas is writing something on immigration and he submits an op-ed, but random like people writing articles in the New York Times, I'm going to appeal to like the wider studies that look at like NAFTA's economic impact. Or we can read things from like the Council of Foreign Relations, or we can read things that are published in like different economic journals to see like the actual impact. I'm like appealing to a single opinion article on the New York Times.
I think that people throughout those sources you listed would agree about the conditions in many of the capitalist countries of the world. I mean, this is the CIA World Factbook. I just read you the life expectancies throughout the countries nearby Cuba and compared them. What?
What does that prove? What does life expectancy prove?
What is? Yeah, right. Who cares if people die sooner? I mean, oh, okay, all right. It doesn't matter, right? Life expectancy. Who cares about that?
Wait,
right?
what do you think
Okay.
I just asked? Wait, what was the question I just asked?
You said, what does life expectancy prove?
Okay. Do you think that means I want people to die early?
No, but apparently you're saying it doesn't matter how long people live, right?
No, what I'm
does it
asking
prove?
you
I'm
is,
telling
what do you think? What I'm
I think
asking
it
you is, what do
matters.
you
When you're improving people's life expectancy and their access to healthcare and their quality of life, that's a good thing. But what does it prove? Oh, okay, what does it prove?
What I'm saying is that just because you see an increase in life
We're going
expectancy,
around in circles here. Honestly, I don't know if we should keep going. I mean, we're just kind of repeating ourselves. But
okay, just as a quick thing, just because life expectancy improves, one, that's not even necessarily reflective of positive underlying things, and two, it doesn't necessarily mean you can attribute it solely to like an economic organization or a particular government. So, for example, one country might have access to more food than another country. That country might become more obese, and you might see a decrease in their life expectancy. Type 2 diabetes can lead to anywhere from a 7 to 13-year decrease on your lifespan, right? So if you were to compare the life expectancy of two countries like that, this is just one example out of 50 trillion potential hypotheticals. Maybe the increase in immigration to the United States, the lower average life expectancy of, say, African Americans or Hispanic people are keeping the life expectancy of the United States down compared to other socialist countries. Just appealing to one stat and saying, well, the life expectancy in Cuba is higher than the life expectancy in the United States, that doesn't prove anything. So when I ask, like, well, what does that mean? That stat is totally meaningless.
I don't think Cuba's life expectancy is higher than the United States. I think it's pretty close, but I don't think it's higher. I'm reading to you from The Guardian, November 27th, 2016. Quote, Cuba's literacy rate is at 100%, and its life expectancy parallels first world nations, despite limited funding and supplies. The country's ratio of doctors to patients, its proactively community-centered approach to healthcare has long been the envy of Western countries, not the least the UK. I think that's an example of central planning improving people's lives.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think so, but I guess it's another argument.
I have some questions from chat if we want to do that first.